Girivaradhari Gopichana Vallabham Girivaradhari Gopichana Vallabham Girivaradhari Gopichana Vallabham Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brachachana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brachachana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brachachana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brachachana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Prabhupada ki jai, Gopinande Hari Bol. Om Jnanatimidandasya Tiranjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 28, text 35 and 36. Tatra Chandravasa Nama.
Tatra Chandravasa Nama.
Tatra Chandravasa Nama.
Tatra Chandravasa Nama.
Tamraparni Vatodaka.
Tamraparni Vatodaka.
Tamraparni Vatodaka.
Tamraparni Vatodaka.
Tat Punya Salilair Nityam.
Tat Punya Salilair Nityam.
Tat Punya Salilair Nityam.
Tat Punya Salilair Nityam.
Ubhayatratmano Mrijan.
Ubhayatratmano Mriyan.
Ubhayatratmano Mrijan.
Ubhayatratmano Mriyan.
Tatra Chandravasa Nama.
Tatra Chandravasa Nama.
Tamraparni Vatodaka.
Tamraparni Vatodaka.
Tat Punya Salilair Nityam.
Tat Punya Salilair Nityam.
Ubhayatratmano Mrijan.
Ubhayatratmano Mrijan. Tatra Chandravasa Nama.
Tatra Chandravasa Nama.
Tamraparni Vatodaka. Tamraparni Vatodaka. Tat Punya Salila Nityam.
Tat Punya Salila Nityam.
Ubhayatratmano Mrijan.
Ubhayatratmano Mrijan.
Tatra Chandravasa Nama.
Tatra Chandravasa Nama.
Tamraparni Vatodaka.
Tamraparni Vatodaka.
Tat Punya Salila Nityam.
Tat Punya Salila Nityam.
Ubhayatratmano Mrijan.
Ubhayatratmano Mrijan. Vaishnavis.
Tatra Chandravasa Nama.
Tatra Chandravasa Nama.
Tamrapani Vatodaka.
Tamrapani Vatodaka.
Tat Punya Salilai Nityam.
Tat Punya Salilai Nityam.
Ubhayatratmano Mrijan.
Ubhayatratmano Mrijan.
Tatra Chandravasa Nama.
Tatra Chandravasa Nama.
Tamraparni Vatodaka.
Tamraparni Vatodaka.
Tat Punya Salilair Nityam.
Tat Punya Salilair Nityam.
Ubhayatratmano Mrijan.
Ubhayatratmano
Mrijan. So there is also text 36, which I will read, and then we go into the word by word. Kandashti Bhirmula Palai Pushpa Parnais Trinodhakai Vartmana Shanair Katra Karshanam Tapa Ashtvitaha. Okay, word by word. Tatra, and there. Chandravasa, the Chandravasa river. Nama, named. Tamraparni, the Tamraparni river. Vatodaka, the Vatodaka river. Tat, of those rivers. Punya, pious. Salilaihi, with the waters. Nityam, daily. Ubhayatra, in both ways, Atmanaha, of himself, Mrijan, washing, Kanda, bulbs, Ashtibihi, and by seeds, Mula, roots, Falai, and by fruits, Pushpa, flowers, Parnai, and by leaves, Trina, grass, Udakai, and by water, Vardmanaha, subsisting, Shanai, gradually, Gatra, his body, Karshanam, rendering thin, Tappaha, austerity, Astitaha, he underwent. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. In the province of Kulachala, there were rivers named Chandravasa, Tamraparni, and Vatodaka. King Malayadvaja used to go to those pious rivers regularly and take his bath there. Thus he purified himself externally and internally. He took his bath and ate bulbs, seeds, leaves, flowers, roots, fruits, and grasses, and drank water. In this way he underwent severe austerities. Eventually he became very skinny. Purport. We can definitely see that to advance in Krishna consciousness one must control his bodily weight. If one becomes too fat, it is to be assumed that he is not advancing spiritually. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur severely criticized his fat disciples. The idea is that one who intends to advance in Krishna consciousness must not eat very much. Devotees used to go to forests, high hills or mountains on pilgrimages, but such severe austerities are not possible in these days. One should instead eat only prasad and no more than required. According to the Vaishnava calendar, there are many fasts such as Ekadashi and the appearance and disappearance days of God and his devotees. All of these are meant to decrease the fat within the body, so that one will not sleep more than desired and will not become inactive and lazy. Overindulgence in food will cause a man to sleep more than required. This human form of life is meant for austerity, and austerity means controlling sex, food intake, etc. In this way, time can be saved for spiritual activity, and one can purify himself both externally and internally. Thus, both body and mind can be cleansed. End of purport. Very practical. Om Jnanatimirandasya Viranjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Mina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Namobhistam Stapidam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyaivacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. So in this text we hear a description of, yesterday we heard about the Vanaprastha ashram. So here we hear some practical application. How did the Vanaprasthi in those days spent their time? By performing austerities, living a very simple life. Here is described that the king Malayadvaja would take regular bath in these holy rivers, and he would only eat roots, leaves, some fruits, seeds, and these kind of things. drank a little water, and in this way he underwent severe austerities and also became skinny. So that's the description of the text describing some of the activities of a vanaprasti. And as we heard yesterday, when we hear these descriptions, we should understand that we should, for nowadays, we should just accept the principles. What were the 3 principles we heard yesterday? Simplifying?
The
Surroundings, yes.
Simplify the eating.
Simplifying the eating, yes. Externals, yeah. Surrounding means giving up stuff, not having too much. Then externals meaning the way we decorate ourselves or surround ourselves with items. And then food was also mentioned yesterday as an important thing, simplifying food. And as Devaki Mataji said, usually by old age we are forced to do so because we just can't digest too much. So in Prabhupada, in the purport, really hammers on this point of not too much eating. And he quotes his own Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, who used to severely criticize his fat disciples. Bhaktisiddhanta would kind of ask them, "What's wrong? Are you taking too much ghee? Why are you so fat?" He would point out if one of the brahmacharis was a little bit. Of course, some people, they just by their nature, they have just a kind of body which is a bit, But if one gains weight just because of too much eating, then that should be avoided. So Prabhupada says we can definitely see that to advance in Krishna consciousness, one must control his bodily weight. So you sometimes check your weight. Make sure that you don't. I gain a lot of weight after I became 40. Now I'm 46, but when I turned 40, after 1 year, I gained about almost 20 kg. 15 for sure. First 15, and then when I did my retreat at Ratna Manshari's house, I gained another 5 kg. So I was always, 69 kg for many years. I don't know, 20, 30 years. I was 69. I never had to check. I was always 69. And then after 40, almost I went up to 91. That's more than 20 kg. And I didn't do much. I didn't endeavor for getting more. I didn't. But just somehow bodily system changed, but then I also then I did this Panchakarma treatment in India last December, and I lost again almost 10 kg. And now I again gained after 9 months in the temple again. But now I'm kind of. They say, I think for men it's the height you have. Like I'm 1 meter and 83 centimeters. So then minus 100 gives you the proper. So 83 I can have. I think I have 86 or so. 3 kg extra I have. So Prabhupada says, we can definitely see that to advance in Krishna consciousness, one must control his bodily weight. So watch out for this one. And of course this has to do with controlling the tongue. And in Srila Rupa Goswami's instructions, in the Upadeshamrita, we know Vacho Vigam, Manasakrodhi Vigam. And these description of controlling the different vegas, different urges that the body has, which is the urge to speak, the demands of the mind, the action of the anger, the urges of the tongue, belly, and genitals. These needs to be controlled. And in the purport, Prabhupada emphasizes also there. And Prabhupada says, there are 6 kinds of rasas, tastes, and if one is agitated by any of them, he becomes controlled by the urges of the tongue. Some persons are attracted to eating of meat, fish, crabs, eggs, and other things produced by semen and blood, and eating in the form of dead bodies. Now, some people are, the way Prabhupada describes it, you feel like, wow. But some people feel very much attracted to these kind of foodstuffs. Others are attracted by eating vegetables, creeper, spinach, or milk products, but all for the satisfaction of the tongue's demands. Such eating for sense gratification, that means even if it's for vegetables, including the use of extra quantities of spices like chili and tamarind, is to be given up by Krishna conscious person. Then Prabhupada also includes pan, tobacco, LSD, marijuana in that. And then he says, if we can practice accepting only remnant food offered to Krishna, it is possible to get free from Maya's victimization. So, of course, as we understand, our solution to controlling the tongue is to just accept prasadam. Because the tongue, and also if you live in an ashram, it's quite regulated actually. There is prasadam at 8:30, 9 o'clock, there is prasadam at 1 o'clock, 1:30 maybe, and then there is prasad at 7. And in between there is no prasad. Of course, unless you put something aside and take something to your room and doing this and that. But actually, it's very regulated. There's just fixed prasadam timings, and that's when you take care of your bodily needs, but otherwise you don't bother about this. But outside people, they're always like, tongue, like buying something here, going to the restaurant, getting something there, and putting something in the mouth. Sometimes you see people walking and taking their lunch while walking. But a Krishna conscious person just accepts prasad in a very regulated way. But, however, if one accepts prasad only because of its palatable taste, and thus eats too much, he also falls prey to trying to satisfy the demands of the tongue. And don't worry, usually it says in the beginning of Krishna consciousness you can just eat as much you can, up to the, up to the neck. Yeah, just fill it. But then at some point, we can discuss what it means after some point. But if you become a bit more fixed in Krishna consciousness and you actually start to practice seriously, then you should also learn to control the tongue. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught us to avoid very palatable dishes even while eating prasadam. If we offer palatable dishes to the deities, with the intention of eating such nice food, we are involved in trying to satisfy the demands of the tongue. If we accept the invitation of a rich man with the idea of receiving palatable food, we are also trying to satisfy the demands of the tongue. Sometimes, we say, oh, there's a house program at so-and-so house. Oh, so-and-so house? Yes, I will be there. Because we know there will be lasagna and some nice. We are not so much interested in the spiritual program, but we know there will be nice prasad. So let's go. So if this is the, if this is the only motivation, that might be there, but if it's the only motivation, then we understand. We are also kind of, the tongue is dictating our, That's why in Chaitanya Charitamrita it says, what does it say? I have to check. Chivera lalasa yei iti uttadaya shishnodhara prayana krishna nai paya. That person who runs here and there, seeking to gratify his palate, and who is always attached to the desire of his stomach and the genitals, is unable to attain Krishna. So, and that of course that's description also. There's this line between the tongue, the belly, and the genitals. So if you learn to control the tongue, you also learn to control the stomach and the genitals. So that's the secret. That's why it starts with the tongue. And then Mahaprabhu also says, these are teachings to, I think, Raghunath Das Goswami, do not dress luxuriously and do not eat delicious foodstuffs. It's interesting because, and that's what we heard yesterday, as a Vanaprasi should give up, dressing very luxuriously and eating opulently, because it's a natural desire. Sometimes we even, as a brahmachari, for example, you're meant to be in a sense, you're a monk, and if you open your wardrobe, there is only orange robes, it's not so much you can do about it, it's as ladies a little different, but but then even if sometimes you even see brahmacharis, they, somehow by hook or crook they try to still dress very fancy. And in ISKCON especially, sannyasis also. There is, of course, in some way for preaching purpose also it's good if sannyasis look paka, but you can also overdo it in a sense. But of course, at the end of the day, it's also a matter of your consciousness. If you really do it for preaching purpose, okay. But then if you subtly enjoy looking good, that one has to be careful with that. So when we desire to eat more than necessary, we automatically create many inconveniences in life. However, if we observe fasting days like Ekadashi and Janmashtami, we can restrain the demands of the belly. So these things are recommended, prasadam, and also these fasting days. So that's one aspect that Prabhupada emphasizes in this text. But then also we hear in the text, original text, that thus he purified himself externally and internally. That's interesting, because the whole idea of austerity, why do we do tapasya or austerity in the first place? In order to purify ourselves, right? Because at the moment, consciousness is so much polluted by so many material desires and wrong conception and illusion, and then by these austerities we get more clarity, and we try to purify ourselves. And purification takes, like this word socham or suchi. We also say we know these two, muchi and suchi. You already got to know these words, muchi, suchi. No.
Muchi habe ich noch nie gehört.
Okay, yeah. Muchi means it's unclean. Like yesterday, you very kindly wanted to serve prasadam to me. You saw I came and you immediately got up. How can I serve you? It was a very nice attitude of service. But then I told you, Prabhu, you're muchi. You're dirty. You cannot serve me. You would have to put your plate aside, then wash your hand, wash your mouth, and then you're again suchi, and then you can serve me. And why you're muchi before? Because with your hands you touch your mouth, and the mouth is connected here to the stomach, and it's kind of it's a bodily function that we do. So that's muchi, and then we try to become suchi again. So for this reason, in the Brahminical culture, there is many rules and regulations about how to be suchi, And Srila Prabhupada said that if I would tell you all the rules and regulations, you would faint. So Prabhupada gave us only the very basics, and even these very basics is a lot. If you come to the Bhakta program and you learn all these rules, some Bhaktas, they can find it very hard to accept all these rules, But that's the external part. Yeah, we take shower and we try to keep ourselves clean externally. But then there is also the internal cleanliness. And it was interesting. Some days ago, 2 weeks ago maybe, I was invited in Geneva. There is the UN headquarters, and there is an institution. It's called Dharma Alliance, and they were just newly founded. And Dharma Alliance means these are leaders of different religious groups, traditions based on the Vedic culture. That means Buddhist, Jains, of course Hindus, because they are all following Dharma. They have an understanding of Dharma, although philosophically they have different understanding, but still they're also Dharma religion, the Jains, the Sikhs also. So they are trying to establish Dharma in the political world. And like in the UN and in the society, they want to show that actually the Dharma perspective can be very helpful for today's problems. Because it's interesting, and one person, there was a podium discussion at the UN headquarters, and then the next day there was a workshop amongst these leaders, and we had some discussion. And there was a professor. He gave a talk, and he spoke about how basically the Western world has established what is reality, based actually on the Bible, on Christianity. If you look at the history and how culture was kind of formed, and it's all from the Western perspective, and in Asia is kind of, yeah, that's a religious belief. But we own the truth, and this is our understand. Like the whole thing, or how way people perceive the world is very much colored or structured or influenced by Christianity, actually. So he made the point. But people are, exploiting the world, and there's so many difficulties and problems in the world. So we need a new perspective, and Dharma actually can give us a new perspective. Because with the Dharma we understand there is a cycle of birth and death. It's not that just we live one time so we can do whatever we want and there is no consequences. And we understand that there is life in every living entity, so we consciously slaughter animals. So Dharma perspective can give us a completely different way to look at the world. So it was an interesting discussion, and then one person, one lady, she raised her hand and she said yes. And she was part of a kind of a meditation group. And she says, yes, there is so much pollution in this world, but the greatest pollution is the pollution in the mind. Mm-hmm. And we have to teach people how to purify the mind, because the most pollution is there. Mm-hmm. I find, wow, that's really good. And when we speak of internal cleanliness, then it's exactly that there are so many thoughts every day in our mind, and so many of these thoughts are not healthy. They're either self-destructive, or then they're really dirty in a sense of material desires and so many things that are in the mind. And what is important there is, what do I take in outside? That's why the devotees are careful with not unnecessarily reading too much, newspapers, watching TV, or also social media. All this stuff that you get in, it influences your mind. But rather we want to hear about Krishna, we want to read Krishna book, we want to read Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and we fill our consciousness with these kind of things. And that purifies the mind. So that's another aspect which is emphasized here. Internal and external cleaning. Of course, taking a bath in a holy river, which makes you externally clean, but also internally in the sense that it's purifying. So what is the whole underlying principle of what we have heard and discussed so far? It's this tapasya, that human life is meant for tapasya. And this is very much emphasized in the Bhagavatam in many places, especially here. Rishabdev, 5th canto, 1st chapter. Nayam deho deho bhajan rinoke kashtan kaman arhate vid pujan ye tapo divyam putra kayena sattvam shudyet yasmat brahma sukham sukyam tvanantam. So here Lord Rishabdev speaks to his sons. He says, my dear boys, of all the living entities who have accepted material bodies in this world, one who has been awarded this human form should not work hard day and night, simply for sense gratification, which is available even for dogs and hogs that eat stool. One should engage in penances and austerity to attain the divine position of devotional service. By such activity, one's heart is purified, and one attains this position, he attains eternal, blissful life, which is transcendental to material happiness and which continues forever. So that's the teaching of Rishabdev. Prabhupada gives a very extended translation. Very nice. Makes the point that, and in his purport, Prabhupada emphasizes this point that Prabhupada speaks how people nowadays they spend hours going to their working place and working very hard and then coming back, and then the only thing in the night they enjoy a little sex life, and for that they work the whole life very hard. And the Bhagavatam says very strong, like this sense gratification, it is also available for the Vit Bhujam, the stool eaters. And who are the stool eaters? The dogs or the hogs, the pigs. You see them in Vrindavan. Like here in Switzerland, we don't see so much pigs. If you go to the Zurich, the Bahnhofstrasse, so you don't see pigs running around there. It would be very unusual, right? But if you go to India, you go in a main street somewhere, you see pigs, running around and eating the stool, the sewage water, and so the point is that these animals, they enjoy all the sense gratification. They enjoy with their senses. They eat something they like. They like stool. For them it's tasty. They take this one and they enjoy sex life. And for them, sex life is quite easy. A dog can just have sex life anytime on the street. Has to make much endeavor for it. But human life, if we do the same, then it's very degrading. And human form of life is meant for tapodivyam, for this austerity. Human beings should voluntarily accept suffering in the form of austerities and penances in order to attain divine life. Should voluntarily accept suffering. Now, if you tell this someone, especially here in Switzerland, like in book distribution, hello. No, I give you good advice. You should accept voluntarily suffering. Yes, this is very good for you. Like, they will look at you, what are you talking? Hey, my Guru Maharaj would used to say, we should become very enthusiastic for tapasya. He would say like this, we should be very enthusiastic for tapasya. And it's an interesting point, we should become enthusiastic for tapasya. I mean, tapasya means something which we don't like to do so much, like getting up in the morning early, Mangal Arati. How enthusiastic are we for Mangal Arati? And we are enthusiastic for the breakfast, which will be soon, that's for sure. We have so wonderful cooks. They spoil us with such nice prasadam every day. So we are enthusiastic for that. Yes, let's take prasadam. And maybe we are enthusiastic for kirtan sometimes. Or we have nice speakers like Devaki Mataji, and maybe we are even enthusiastic for class. But then for tapasya, how much were you enthusiastic? Yes, let me follow the 4 regulated principles very strictly. I'm very enthusiastic about it. No sex life. Yeah, super. It's not so easy usually. And usually don't, we accept it, it's kind of part of it, and then, I'll try it. It's hard. But no, here it says we should voluntarily accept it. And we should be very enthusiastic about it. So why should we be enthusiastic about it? Because Krishna promises us that we get Brahma Sukhyam, we get transcendental pleasure if we do so. And in the Bhagavad Gita, which is a famous shlokas in the 18 chapters, Krishna says to Arjuna, now please hear from me about the 3 kinds of happiness by which the conditioned soul enjoys and by which he sometimes comes to the end of all distress. And then Krishna gives these 3 kinds of happinesses. And then he says, that which is in the beginning may be just like poison, but at the end is just like nectar, and which awakens one to self-realization is said to be happiness in the mode of goodness. So in the beginning it's poison, but at the end it's nectar. So because goodness means, yes, rules, regulation, I have to control my mind, I have to control my senses. And in the beginning I don't like that, and it feels difficult and hard. But then if I actually do it, later on, it becomes nectar. I realize actually it's very nice. But the challenge with this kind of happiness is that it comes only later. And in the beginning, we may not really get so much experience of it. Whereas the other kind of happiness, which is in passion, that happiness which is derived from contact of the senses with their objects, and which appears like nectar at first, but poison at the end, is said to be nature of passion. So usually that's the kind of happiness we're going for. If the senses can, connect with the sense objects, the eyes want to see something beautiful, the hands want to touch something soft, the tongue wants to taste something sweet. So the senses always push us to go to the sense objects, and we want to enjoy the objects of the senses. Then we think that's happiness. And Prabhupada goes straight into it in the purport. He says, a young man and a young woman meet, and a sense drive the young man to see her, to touch her, and to have sexual intercourses. In the beginning, this may be very pleasing to the senses, but at the end, or after some time, it becomes like poison. So, and of course then there is happiness in ignorance, which is basically poison in the beginning and poison at the end. It's kind of, and like smoking cigarettes, for example. I don't know if some of you have smoked, but I remember my first cigarette. Like it's really not something pleasurable, but somehow you still but you still continue doing it, and at some point you kind of okay, it's nice, and then you have a hard time to get rid of it again. But this is from the beginning to the end, it's just suffering. So that's happiness in Tamaguna. But now the point is, we should have faith in Krishna. If Krishna tells us that just take a little tapasya, take a little, controlling your senses, and afterwards you get transcendent pleasure, we should have faith in that. And then go through these challenging times, and then later on we will get so much more out of it. And I was just reflecting yesterday evening, Deoki Maharaji, you spoke about forgiveness and about the importance of humility and tolerance also, because without humility and tolerance you cannot really forgive. And also you spoke about these two tools to be tolerant. What's were the two tools to be tolerant? Humility and faith in Krishna. Yes. And when we speak yesterday, when we spoke of tolerance, then yes, someone approaches us and insults us, and we have to tolerate the insult, and we're not becoming angry immediately. Tolerance. But then when we actually practice Krishna consciousness, and when we need to control our tongue, when we need to control our urges, that also requires tolerance. Now, Rupa Goswami speaks, one who can tolerate these 6 urges. So, tolerance is such an important quality. We need tolerance to just practice our basic Krishna consciousness. We need tolerance to control our senses. And that sometimes, of course, we all have experienced, not so easy. All of a sudden, there's a wave of lust desires in our body, and the body and the mind demand some, sense gratification. But then what do? You're living in ashram, you took a vow, you can't just go for it. You'll have to, and then you have to tolerate that urge. And that's not easy. That's sometimes, painful to just tolerate. But then, and I find also it's the same principle apply. Humility and faith in Krishna applies here also. Humility in the sense, oh Krishna, yes, thank you. You show me that I'm not a pure devotee. I thought I'm so advanced already. But now I have these lusty desires in my heart. I can realize I'm not so much advanced. Because if I would be advanced, I wouldn't have these kind of thoughts and these kind of desires. So yes, Krishna makes me humble. And then I also have to have faith in Krishna. I have to have faith in Krishna that yes, Krishna, I know I need to tolerate this, because afterwards I will get transcendental pleasure. And I have to have faith in the process of bhakti. Because sometimes we practice spiritual life for many years, and then we realize I still have the same desires. No, I've been a brahmachari for 20 years, 30 years, and I still feel so much attracted to beautiful girls. So what's wrong with me? The process doesn't work. But then we have to have faith in the process of bhakti, that actually bhakti is so powerful. If I just continue with this process, eventually I will be purified. So I have to have faith in that. And I have to have faith in Krishna, in the process of bhakti, that it will work. And that requires tolerance and patience and humility. And so that's one other aspect in regards to austerity and tolerance. But then ultimately it all depends on developing the proper consciousness. Because if I really deeply realize that I'm a servant of Krishna, I'm Krishna Das, then it becomes much easier. Because why do I still have these desires? Why do I still want to enjoy? Because I still see myself as the enjoyer. But if I learn to see myself as a servant, then it becomes easier. And I'd just like to read something from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and something from Srila Gaura Govinda Maharaj, and with this I will conclude. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, enjoyment refers to sense activities, and renunciation refers to remaining aloof from material objects for sense gratification. When enjoyment is prominent, renunciation is diminished. And when renunciation is prominent, enjoyment is diminished. Either you're in the mood of enjoyment or in the mood of renunciation. You can't have both at the same time. And the important thing here is, if you go into the mood of enjoyment, the problem is that the mood of renunciation gets diminished. And that's a danger also with material desires, cultivating material desires. There is an example given in the Shastra. It's like there's a little pond of water, there's not much water in there, and there is a lot of weeds around the pond. And the more weeds are growing, they actually suck the water out of the pond. And at some point the pond will be dried up. So these weeds around the pond are like these material desires. If there is too much material desires, then it dries up our spiritual life. So, and that's usually what happens with some devotees. Then they practice Krishna conscious, for them the process doesn't really work, and then they again get back to their old habits and material desires are cultivated, and then their Krishna consciousness or the mood of renunciation is dried up. But then Bhaktisiddhanta says, neither enjoyment nor renunciation are necessary in this world. Actual enjoyment means to serve the Supreme Lord. Real renunciation means to reject material enjoyment in order to give Krishna pleasure. A devotee's two primary qualities are attachment to Krishna and renunciation of the thirst for material enjoyment. A devotee finds enjoyment in assisting Krishna to satisfy his senses. So there's two things, bhoga and tyaga, and actually for the devotee, they're both not relevant. That's the point here. For a devotee, he has nothing to do with bhoga, and he has nothing to do with tyaga, actually. Bhoga is enjoyment, and tyaga is renunciation. But a devotee actually has nothing to do with them. Yes, his main qualities, Bhaktisiddhanta says, is attachment to Krishna and renunciation of the thirst for the personal pleasure. But the point is, if we deeply understand that Krishna is the only enjoyer and the only proprietor, then there is no question of enjoyment for us. There are two words, bhoga and tyaga. Bhoga means enjoyment, tyaga means renunciation. Enjoyment and renunciation are not meant for us. Both are meant for Krishna. If he wants to give up, he will give up. If he wants to enjoy, he will enjoy. Our duty is only to please him. That's all. Nothing else. Enjoyment and renunciation both belong to Krishna. Because if you understand that Krishna is the enjoyer and Krishna is the proprietor, then what is my role? I'm not meant to enjoy, and I'm not meant to possess anything, so I'm not meant to give up, because what can I give up if I don't possess it in the first place? And if I just see myself as a servant of Krishna, then that will be my proper position. So in this mentality, the austerity that is described here becomes more easy because I naturally see myself as a servant, and that enjoying spirit can be reduced. Okay, Hare Krishna, this is what I prepared for this shloka. Let's see whether we have some Devaki Mataji would like to comment on anything.
Yeah, a couple of things come to my mind. First of all, one thing which we didn't have time to talk about yesterday, but when it comes to uprooting envy, false ego, lust, the ultimate thing is to cry out to Krishna.
Yeah.
Because we, out of our own strength, we actually can't free ourselves from this. Yeah, we've been carrying this along with us for so many lifetimes, you know. So, because you were saying, sometimes we get overcome by desires, and so crying out to Krishna, Nrsingadev, he is very good with his sharp nails to do some heart surgery. And it's a nice way to see things, that Lord Nrsingadev actually prepares our heart to approach Radha Krishna.
Yeah, it's a beautiful meditation.
Yeah.
And because he specially comes, it's a special form. It's not that he's special form to help his devotee. Yeah.
And then another thing came to my mind, going back to, putting on too much weight there, what Prabhupada says. We can even see it as Krishna's perfect arrangement, that in old age we are really meant to give up this propensity in order to prepare ourselves for death. So we leave this body in good consciousness. So therefore, he arranges it that in old age, if we don't learn to control the tongue, we've got to put on weight. And you see on the street, a lot of old fat people, because you just don't burn up that calories anymore.
By nature, it would be a clear sign. So now, it's time to be more careful. And
So Krishna arranges it all, that if we don't reduce the eating, and we can have so many excuses, my metabolism, this, that. No, sorry. If we put on weight, it simply means we eat more than what is required to keep body and soul together. And in old age, we have to reduce because we don't burn it up, and the metabolism changes. But that's all part of Krishna's arrangement to force us. It becomes, obvious that we eat too much because we're going to put on weight and we can't digest, or we get sick. And all the joints and so it's perfectly. And then once we get closer to death, it gets even more extreme. Then we have to give up. We can only eat liquids and I witnessed it last year when my mother left. She was so fond of enjoying the tongue, but these last few weeks before leaving, you just can't. And Krishna just smashes all these hopes, in a quite expert way,
Thank you.
These little comments came to my mind.
What also came to my mind when you just spoke, that Prabhupada emphasized in the purport, because the problem also with too much weight is that then you become inactive and lazy. And then Prabhupada emphasized the importance of human form of life and of don't wasting time. That's interesting also how Prabhupada makes this point. And that we can always feel in Prabhupada's writings, there is such an urgency always, no? This urgency. We have to, this life, we should use this life, and we should, spend every moment in Krishna consciousness, doing something for Krishna, because it's so valuable. We shouldn't waste any moment. And we can read in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, actually Rupa Goswami describes it as one of the symptoms of a person in bhava, that he uses the time very properly. He doesn't want to waste any moment. And Prabhupada, I feel it so strongly comes out there. Prabhupada was very heavy on that. Don't waste time. Just, engage yourself in what is really important.
One more little thing came to my mind, that actually the attraction to perform austerities We can find this also amongst non-devotees, you know.
It's,
But it's
yeah,
misdirected, like here in Switzerland, or this climbing the mountains, hanging on the cliffs there, you know, my God. Or I know in
you can
Norway.
say it's suffering, yeah, it's kind of voluntarily suffering.
Yes,
To
yes,
get out some higher
yes,
kick or something.
yes. Or in Norway, there's these bicycle riders which ride through whole Norway to the North Cape. My God, what tapasya, you know. In Norway, it goes really up and down the hills. My God, on a bicycle, that's huge tapasya. It takes you weeks, you know. So actually, it is built into the human being, but the people just misdirect it.
Ja, interesting point, ja.
Dazu ist mir auch, ich würde es ganz kurz auf Deutsch sagen, ich glaube auf Englisch würde ich das sehr, sehr falsch formulieren. Da fällt mir eine kurze Geschichte zu ein, genau über die Situation. Damals, als ich in der Ausbildung war, mein Lehrer, so kurz vor der Rente, erzählt dann plötzlich, dass er ganz gerne auf der Autobahn mit dem Motorrad fährt. Und dann ist so richtig lieb, so kurz vorm Tod zu sein, so diese letzten Sekunden, jede Sekunde könnte irgendwas passieren, wenn er runterfällt, ist er tot. Und dann meine ich so zu ihm, interessant. Ja. Und da sieht man es eben drauf, dass man in der materiellen Welt eben die falschen Sachen kultiviert und dann eben zu so abstrusen, sehr gefährlichen Sachen neigt. Ja.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. That some people, they are so bored with their daily life, day-to-day life, you know. They understand life is so dry, so meaningless, and then they are trying to get some special emotion kick out of these kind of crazy things. Luckily, we got Krishna consciousness. We can absorb in the transcendental reality of Krishna, which gives us a true happiness. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Good Premanande.
Thank you for the nice class.
Thank you for coming and listening.
Prabhupada is sometimes so blunt, isn't he? As fast as I'm meant to reduce that fat.
That's not the only reason, but yeah, he probably makes the point.
Ja, das ist das Monat da gemacht. Das soll doch mal vorbeikommen.
Ja.
Also am besten, wenn er mir Bescheid sagt, dann kommt es.
Ich wollte das hier.
Auch wenn.
Was ist denn
Ja. Aber heute wäre einer der einzige Tag, den Mond zu machen.
Ich soll auch als ich immer Montag
Ja, Phase machen. Also mir wäre es lieb nach Mittag, dann habe ich den Morgen noch ein paar Sachen zu tun. Aber ich bin auch flexibel. Oh, da bin ich flexibel.
Krishna, Krishna,
Hare Krishna.